right, poultry nerds, we're here in this exciting episode today on Quail Mania. We're going to talk about a lot of different options for quail housing. Jennifer has scoured the interwebs, looked all over
I stole
Facebook,
pictures. I stole pictures.
and probably don't even remember where they came from. But I will say, people, if these are your pictures, feel free to tag yourself. They're all really good pictures. So today we're going to talk about different options for housing quail. And like for me, I think personally, before you decide, okay, these quail, they're cute. I like the colored ones. I like the ones that are black and white and look like Paul Bear Bryant's hat. I like the ones that get really big. I think that you need to figure out what your goals are. When I had a couple of chickens, but when I talked to one of my mentors about what I needed to do, he said, you really need to think about your goals. So when we look through all of these and you're thinking about quail housing, think about what your goals are. Are you wanting them for meat and eggs? Are you wanting them because you love the way they sound and you want to just sit there, play your opera music, maybe enjoy an adult beverage, smoke a cigar, and listen to your quail? Those are all things that are legit. So, with that, Jennifer's going to show some that she has found, and we're going to talk about them.
Yep. So let me just preface this by giving credit. I found these on Pinterest and on just searching Google, and they just different pictures came up. I think they're pretty, I don't know what's the word. They're pretty benign. So they're not exactly somebody's
I mean,
setup.
some of these are pretty bougie,
Well, okay.
and some of them I'm like, if it really worked that way, that would be cool. So,
I wanted to
let's
give a
dive
lot of
in.
examples. So as you guys are going through today for Quail Mania and you're learning everything you need to know, that you can formulate a plan in your head with some of these options. There are definitely 1,000 different ways to raise quail. If you have small
Oh, yeah.
kids, I have seen them on like a raised table with a wire top where the kids can see them in their active. Just there's just so many different out of the box ways that you can do this. So we just
It would be pretty cool to have one of those big parrot cages sitting in front of a window in your living room. And you could just sit there and enjoy the sound of either a Coturnix or even a Bob White.
a
Like that would be buttons, their little noise.
yeah.
That's a thing. So you
Make a
got to figure out what you want to do.
okay, let's get this party started. Okay, so first, I mean, if you don't already know at this point in Quail Mania, Japanese quail, those are a ground bird. They're not going to roost. They're not going to want to go upstairs like a chicken to go to the bed. They're going to want to stay down and nestle down in the shavings or the deep litter, whatever it is that you have going on inside that you decide that you need is flooring in there.
But and even like your Bob White quail, they like to get in a covey on the ground. A good spot for them is like a thicket of grass or something like that. They're not very aerial either.
Mm, yeah.
So
I've never had Bob White.
I've hunted them most of my life.
Okay, so you want to keep the roof of your cage either less than 15 inches or more than 7 feet.
Yep.
And the reason being is when they crouch down to launch themselves up under 15 inches, they haven't got up to full speed yet, and hopefully they won't hurt themselves. But once they're launched, that velocity can break their neck up until about 7 feet. And so at 7 feet, you can put some kind of netting or something up and they will fall back down. I have been in my barn before, though, and my Barn pens are 7 feet tall, and at the time, I did not have any netting across the top of them. Now I do because of this incident, but I was standing there talking to somebody, and one of them just helicoptered straight up and flew across the barn, hit the wall, fell down to the floor, and walked back and looked at me, and I opened the door, and he walked back in. 7 feet it is. That's a safe spot.
I guess he hit his head and had enough of that crap.
I think it's safer inside the pen.
Yep.
So if you decide to do aviary style, which we're going to explain here in just a minute, you're going to want to do a square foot per bird. And if you want to do cage style, stackable cages, which we're going to talk about at the end, that's going to be more like 2 birds per square foot. So there are a couple things just to watch for that I tell people who want to give them a lot of space. If you find them fighting or becoming territorial, then you either need to add more birds, which I know sounds counterproductive, or take a couple birds out and give them a little bit more space. Cage style, typically you want to keep them in there where they can move around, but they can't have enough space to get territorial.
Yeah, and a lot of people, me included, got into quail because I wanted to do some experiments with chickens, and the genetics of the two are extremely similar. But quail mature 7, 8 weeks, and my Rhode Island Reds is like 7 or 8 months. It seems like sometimes. So with that, there's a lot of that, but the quail are very fast. And with chickens, it's not good to overcrowd them. But from what I've seen with quail, they actually get along really well when they're overcrowded.
Like stacked in there like soldiers.
Yeah. And when you do that, they'll do their job and give you really good fertility rates.
Yep. So we're going to start off with hutches. I think those are probably the most popular. Those are usually what I refer to people who are starting out with quail to go grab them a rabbit hutch off of Marketplace or Craigslist. Rabbit stuff seems to be cheaper. So just grab you one of those and try it out. And then if quail is for you and you want to proceed in a different housing type manner, you can really resell those rabbit hutches pretty easily. A lot of rabbit people out there. So a hutch is typically got a wire bottom. You want to make sure that is coated wire so they don't rust and bother the padding of the bird's foot.
Yeah.
You want it to be no less than 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch. But if you can do like 1/2 inch by 1 inch, that's great too. And you want to give them a hide so that they can get in out of the weather and maybe put some shavings in there like a footrest. But typically you're just going to let the manure fall to the ground, and then you don't have poop trays to deal with, and you can just rake it up, or maybe your chickens, if you have chickens, you can have them scratch it up and
I
take
was
it.
gonna say, I talked to Terry and he told me if you let it sit there long enough, you'll have black soldier flies,
Mhm.
and he said they compost it for you.
They do. They're fantastic. Or a worm farm, you can dump some worms in there too.
Yep. They'll compost it and help get rid of the smell.
Mm.
That'll work out really good for you.
Typically, hutches are about waist high, so you don't have a lot of bending or lifting or reaching or crouching or
I like that.
pretty lazy. Just walk up to it and deal with it. The birds can be exposed out to the weather, the cold. The heat is harder on them than cold is. You just want to let them have a place to get in if they want to, out of the weather. And then you just need feed and water, however you want to do it. It's pretty simple. Hutch style is fantastic for the beginner, in my opinion.
Those two right there, I really like both of those. The one on the left, I'm actually planning on building one as the weather gets warmer to use as a grow out pen.
Just keep in mind when I pick these pictures, obviously I didn't keep the 15 inches in mind. So just keep that in mind.
And mine's only going to be a foot tall.
Yeah, it saves on lumber and wire and
Mhm.
everything too. Yeah. All right. The next up is this cute little quail tractor. I don't think it would be very hard to move that around on your grass. You may only get, I don't know, you probably fit probably 10 in there. That looks to be about what, 3 feet long? You could probably
Probably.
yeah,
Yeah.
12 in there really if you really wanted to. And then just move it around to fresh grass, maybe inside of your garden, something like that. But that way the kids can walk up and see them.
That's a lot.
I thought that was cute.
So part of me has I thought about having raised garden beds myself. And in the cooler months, you could stick something like this on top, let them do their business,
Mhm.
turn it under, and you don't even have to handle the poop trays and dump them in for your fertilizer. It's already done.
Several years ago, I can't remember where I saw it, so there's no way for me to find it again. But there was somebody that had really long raised beds,
Hmm.
and he had built a movable tractor that ran along the rails of the beds. And so he could move incrementally down the bed.
There's a lady that I follow on TikTok.
That does that?
That, yes, she used to be a teacher, which is one of the things that got me to following her. And she has raised beds. The ones that you can get that are made out of the metal, like a stock tank, she has those, and she she made some pins that are the size of those and just barely stick over, and she'll put chickens in there for a week at a time and move them from one to the next. And I'm like, hey, yeah, there's your fertilizer.
Yep. All right. Next up is those aviaries that we talked about. These kind of look like something that maybe on a storage lot. So I didn't feel like I was stealing somebody's picture. So you have a little place in the back where you can store your feed and anything else that you accumulate. It seems like you can't be a bird person without being a hoarder.
You accumulate a lot of crap as well.
And then you've got the 7 feet accommodated there. And you can use the deep litter method in there. Personally, I don't care for it, but if you lived up north, I can see where that would work. Sand, wood chips, shavings, pellets, peat moss, or you use pretty much
You can
anything.
use all kinds of stuff.
Mhm.
And see the one on the right, the red shed, the guy's already got his chair inside where he can sit in there and enjoy his birds.
I've seen people put little tables in there and lights and candles.
Got to have somewhere to set your coffee.
Yep, sit in there, either drink coffee or drink your wine at the end of the day and just watch your birds. We're going to talk about eggs at the end of it, but just keep that in mind that quail aren't like chickens. They don't go back to a nest box all the time. There are some people who say that their quail lay in a nest, but I think that's going to be the exception, not the norm.
I was going to say some may, but you probably aren't going to get that lucky every time.
No. I think aviaries would be fun, especially if you had kids or you just had pets or you just wanted a nice place to relax in the backyard. So next up would be cages. The one on the left is actually one of my cages. That happens actually to be the button quail cage. They took a picture because it was clean at the time, but my grout cages look the same. They're made out of wood and hardware cloth, and they have the no waste feeders that are on the outside, and it has a water tank up there on the top with a nipple water inside. I can do everything from the outside without having to open it up and mess with them.
On those, didn't you even make the design where you could get a heat plate in and out of the top if you needed to put them in there when they were too little?
Yeah,
And
the
they still
top
needed some heat?
yep, the top has a hatch that's on a spring that I can open and set a 12-inch sheet plate down in there.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. The one on the right is a picture from Alibaba. Those are commercial style quail cages where you can really pack them in there. The has egg rollout trays. They have automatic water system and trough feeders all hanging out the front of it. It's very efficient to use it vertically like that. So this would be something if you were in it to really turn over the meat and the eggs on a regular basis. I think stackable cages are necessary if you want to make a hatching egg business or sell eggs, I think you do have to go vertical in order to maintain freshness of your
Yeah,
eggs.
definitely.
And so just all of these different reasons for keeping a quail.
And also back up real quick to that picture. The picture from Alibaba when we were talking about crowding them being better
Mhm.
than not having enough. If you look at the pictures of those birds, they don't have picked heads or any signs of aggression or anything like that. And those cages are really crowded.
Mhm.
So yeah, you can't be territorial when you're elbow to elbow.
Yeah, you're probably talking about I typically keep around 2 feet 2 birds per square foot, but some of these you could probably go up to 3 birds. I guess you could technically do more. Now, if you're talking about a bachelor cage, you do want to crowd them in there and keep them in dimmer light. The more crowded they are, the less they argue. Boys will be boys, right?
Yep.
Okay, so now let's talk about the eggs, what I was talking about before. We can go backwards a little bit. On the stackable cages, you're gonna have egg rollout trays that are meant for breeders. The flooring is gonna be on a slant, so the eggs will roll out to the front. It keeps them cleaner, keeps them from hiding. So maybe you find a week old egg later. If you kept them aviary style, that could happen. But if you're into efficiency, you want those eggs to roll out the front, you can just walk by and grab them, pick them out. If you keep a aviary or a hutch style, maybe not so much a hutch style, but definitely aviary, if they lay in the corner under a plant that you put there for them to hide in, it could theoretically take you a week or a month to find that egg if you aren't really careful. And then you go to crack that thing and you're gonna be staying in a hotel for the smell.
Gonna say that's gonna be like if you have an aviary or a tractor, every time you collect eggs is gonna be like a game of hide and seek.
Yes. And they're not gonna be as clean. They're gonna be more apt to get wet with the weather or the dew. You're just gonna have to be more mindful of that. I'm not saying it's bad, I'm just saying you have to be mindful. For example, I have free range chickens, so when I crack eggs for breakfast, I always crack them separately into a small dish, one at a time. That way, if I do happen to pick up an egg that I thought was fresh but was really old, that I don't ruin what I'm cooking. It's just part of being a farmer, I guess. The hut style, of course, you're just gonna have the wire floors. You're not gonna have those egg rollouts. I guess theoretically you could have an egg rollout on the outside, but your problem is going to be mice and rats and raccoons and hawks and kids and dogs and cats all coming by to collect your eggs for you. So chances are those eggs are gonna be on the inside of the cage, and then you're gonna have to open the door and reach in there and get them, which isn't a big deal, but just make sure that you can block that
Something to
door.
think about.
And you gotta just make sure you can block that door with your arm or your shoulder so that the birds don't escape just because you're trying to collect eggs. Because the last thing you wanna do is pouring down rain, you're trying to get your eggs for breakfast, and then you gotta chase birds around your yard because they got out. So just keep that in mind. Mm. So, so in conclusion, there's no really wrong answer. There's just what is going to work best for you. So maybe at the end of today, after you have all this information, you're in quail information overload and all
Yeah, you
excited.
will be.
And you're all excited. Sit back, think about your space, think about how you want it to work, what you have available, and of course your budget, and decide which direction is going to be the best for you.
Like you could go to a lot of the larger Coternics Facebook groups and look at all the different ways that people do stuff. And I have the way that I do stuff. Other people do stuff differently. Neither one of them are necessarily wrong because we both have great, healthy birds.
Mm.
At the end of the day, when it comes to raising quail or any other animal, as long as that bird's nutritional needs are met and as long as that bird's safe, you do you. Like do it how you want to do, because ultimately you are doing it for yourself. Do what makes you happy.
And I would like to also add that there are some commercially available cages out there for the purposes of today. We're not endorsing any of those. So do your homework on those. And if you have any questions, you can reach out privately if you want to. We can give you our opinions for sure. And the only other thing I may add here at the end is I have really seen some hodgepodge type cages put together on string leftover things that are found at the curb on the side of the road. And I feel like if you did that, you're going to be spending a lot of your time working on it and not enjoying your birds and what they were meant for. So also keep
Yeah.
in mind.
Yeah. When you're making that decision, do think about the aesthetics. Is it going to be something you want to look at, something you want to enjoy? Is
Mhm.
it something that, do you want to get a solution that's all in one? Do you enjoy building stuff? Do you want to find something off of marketplace and make it work? Again, that goes to the you do you. You
Do
do
you
what's best.
do you wanna do poop trays or not poop trays? So, pros and cons to those. We do lots
Yeah.
of them here.
I was gonna say we don't want to do them. It's that whole vertical thing that you got to go to get what you need.
Exactly. Alright, I hope this helped you guys get your thoughts together on how you wanted to move forward on your property with your setup.
I hope y'all enjoy your day.
Alright, bye.
Bye.